It's how do I create those partnerships externally, internally, that we do this together. And then that entrepreneurial zest is what I like to call it, is that instead of asking why not, and allowing yourself to dream big.
Welcome to the Next Level Women podcast, where powerhouse women break limits, claim their worth, and rise beyond good enough. I'm Jennifer Perri, a transformational coach, best-selling author, and fierce advocate for women reclaiming their power. After overcoming adversity from an abusive marriage to Guillain-Barré syndrome, I've made it my mission to help women rise above limiting beliefs, unlock their genius, and create lives of freedom, ease, and fulfillment. Each week, I sit down with 6- and 7-figure female entrepreneurs, executives, and visionaries who are rewriting the rules of success, building lasting impact, and owning their brilliance. Together, we'll share strategies, breakthroughs, and unfiltered conversations designed to inspire your clarity, confidence, and next level power. This isn't just another business podcast. It's where transformation meets legacy and where unstoppable women rise. Welcome to the Next Level Women podcast. Welcome to the Next Level Women podcast, where women stop waiting and start choosing what's next. I'm your host, Jennifer Perri. I'm a reinvention and divorce coach, a mindset and money strategist, and the CEO of Shiro Life and Empowerment Coaching. Each week, I sit down with powerful women who are redefining success and building life on their terms. And our guest today is one of my favorite people, is Barb Wasilewski. How are you, Barb?
Doing great. Thanks, Jen.
I could talk to her forever. I really could. She's very one of those people that's very easy to talk to. So we were just talking about landscapers and doorbell ringings and dog barking and everything else. So, if anybody was ever in the green room with us, they'd be laughing right along. But on today's show, the theme for today's show is the leadership the world needs now. And you're going to hear after this conversation why Barb is one of those people who are stepping into authentic leadership, who I really feel that the world needs. But Barb, I'm going to brag on you for a second, so you're just going to have to listen. So here we go. Hopefully I don't butcher the name of your company. So we already practiced it.
All good.
Barb is the CEO and founder of Speranza Consulting and a transformational leadership expert with more than 20 years of executive experience across healthcare, government, and nonprofit sectors. Barb has led complex province-wide initiatives in mental health, maternal health, primary care, and long-term care. Her work centers on helping leaders unlock their brilliance through authentic, human-centered leadership that creates sustainable impact. Phew. You're a very impressive lady. I already knew that. So not everybody else is going to learn that. But Barb, if you don't mind just telling everybody a little bit more about you, where you're located, and a little bit more about what you do.
Sure. So obviously my own entrepreneur, my own CEO, as I like to call it, of both my business and my life, and located up here in Canada in the Perri province of Manitoba. And we're lucky today. It's hot and sunny after a very long and cold winter. So that's where I'm out of, in the probably the heart of North America. If there was such a thing as right the center of it, that's where I'm located. So yeah, that's a little bit about what I do, my background, but you've said it well. I think, I have a passion, and probably after 20 odd years of being in the trenches, as you say, I've been part of mentoring a lot of leaders, and just have this, I guess, a calling to help other leaders not have as hard of a journey at it. It's a tough gig. It can be a tough gig, I should say. And I just fundamentally believe that you kind of have to help out your fellow leaders. And there's some things that, over the 20 plus years of maybe having a few of my own missteps and, never do that again. Probably gotten into a groove where I figured out how to fire people up and get results and have a good time doing it. And I just wish the same for other leaders, particularly in healthcare, government, not for profit.
I know when we first talked, you're a very humble person. Like there is no doubt that you were able to fire people up because you were just in the way that you were talking about what you did and how you kind of moved into doing things on your own and stepping into that leadership role. You just had this very natural, authentic way about you. And I can only imagine that carried on everywhere that you were. But what first called you to step out on your own into your own leadership and say, okay, I'm going to go in this direction, and
No.
I'm going to not so much be on a team and an employee, but I'm going to step out in faith and I'm going to do this. What first put you into that direction?
Well, and I'll start it this way. A lot of the, in that long shopping list of things I've done, I really, really enjoyed and loved. And I probably, in the many different experience I have, if anybody knows me, I give 120% to everything I do, and was part of some pretty exciting things. And then you start getting that internal calling that after being an employee for more than 20 years, I start thinking like, but I want to do it my way, and I want to do it the way I think it should get done, that actually, and I don't have to go through levels and layers. And, while I was still very lucky that in the organization I worked, I was allowed to do quite a bit, it's still something different when you get to do it the way you envision it. And I would be honest and say that it took me a few years, and I second guessed myself. I talked myself out of it. I came up with every reason that it wasn't the right time. And then, sometimes life happens. And probably the minute I made that decision, within 24 hours, I did 110% into being my own CEO. It didn't take long. It just took long to make the decision. But once I did, right in it, I went.
So it took a little while, but so I'm sure you were kind of dealing with what I guess a lot of women that even that I work with who want to leave corporate do things a little bit different on their way or fill in the gaps of what they see as missing. They struggle with self-doubt. Like, should I be doing this? And what did that look like for you? Obviously, it took it a longer period of time for you to do it, but then once you finally agreed, you just leapt and you did it. But
Yeah.
what were you dealing with? What was that inner struggle that you were dealing with during that period of time?
Yeah, I think, and I'll say it this way, and I think leaders live this every day. You think it's someone else who's got the capability and something about the other person that you don't have, and you watch it, and then you just somehow talk yourself into, well, that could never be me.
Mm.
That seems so far away from where I am. I mean, I look where I am. I'm in the middle of Manitoba, and I love Winnipeg, Manitoba dearly. But who would think that suddenly I'm here with you having this conversation, and how that happened. So I think it seems so big, and it seems so that it's for some sort of special group that you're not in. Um, and then I think, as each time I started watching more and being around women entrepreneurs, and the more I got exposed to that, then I started realizing what's different between me and so and so. And maybe the light bulb came. I think I'm the one holding myself back.
Mm.
Uh, and having that exposure for a while and allowing myself just to observe, and then realizing that it was me, I thought, well, how complicated would it be? And then one of the things I did was just went out and took a course with um, put a plug in for Stu McLaren and the membership experience. And they just helped me process all of my ideas into something that actually worked. So, for me, it was probably taking that leap and then starting to learn. If I felt like that was something I didn't know, then I went out and started learning and just took in a lot of new information. And actually, I started following you probably right within those first few days of making that decision.
Oh wow. We talked about that. That was very nice to hear that sometimes you never know if you never know how you're impacting someone or if you're there to support them, which is why even on days that you don't feel like it, you show up because that's going to be a day that you missed an opportunity to bless somebody or encourage them or be there for them. And you are a very unique person. Like there's no, I mean, I've only known you for a short period of time, but could talk to you probably hours upon hours just because I like your energy. And I also like the way that you just have this natural way of kind of being kind to other people and talking about other people and encouraging other people. And, even when you were just talking about that, like, well, this other person, it was them, they were the glue, they were the reason, they were that, but really spending time looking at yourself and saying, wait a second, I'm this unique person. I've been in all these, areas and of life and leadership. And when did you realize it was time? I know you made that leap, but when did you realize you brought such a uniqueness to what you wanted to do? Was there like a moment in that period of time? I mean, I could pick it up pretty quickly when we first talked the first time, but was there a moment for you where you're like, wait a minute, I can do this for sure. And I am unique and this is everything that I'm going to be. Was there a light bulb thing for you that happened?
Yeah, I think when I started, going through the learning and putting pen to paper, like actually instead of like a flood of thoughts and a flood of self-doubt, I actually gave myself permission to try
Mm,
to articulate what it was, my vision, the problem I saw that I could solve and how passionate I was about it. And then it was that exercise where it's like, but why me?
mm,
And that okay, I'll be honest, that took me a bit, but why me? And then when you're forced to have to talk about yourself, not just your corporate experience, but your values, your life experience added with it, your style, your values, then I thought, oh no, I think, am I everybody's cup of tea? Absolutely not. And I'll be the first to tell everybody that I might not be, but there is, for the group I'm looking at, which is that new to mid leaders in healthcare, government, not for profit, I have a lot to offer. And in a way that, doesn't judge people, doesn't, you should, you could, but more like, I see you and I've been there, and how can I help? Make this just a little easier because I've lived it. So
right.
that was, I think, when I was forced to pen to paper and commit to a story about myself, that's when I thought, wait, I do have something. And then light bulbs. Yeah, wait a minute. I have 10 years of experience with that. You know, um, I think when you see it on a resume, it's one thing. When you
Right.
see it written up about you as a person, it's a different perspective.
And it's also very hard to talk about yourself.
Oh,
I've found that very difficult, because yeah, I mean, I look back on my life and my own story personally, which a lot of people even know about and all the ugly and the messy middle and all of that. Like for the longest time, there was shame in that. And then you realize that the more you share it, the more other people can see themselves in what it is that you're doing. And you're there to just kind of show up and be authentic. And you're talking about, authentic leadership, which I think is so desperately needed. But just even in the way that you interacted with other people and having the conversations with yourself, like, wait a second, hold on, I have this experience and being around other women and watching them navigate leadership, um, and emotion. And a lot of times I know women don't show that at work. But what do you see, and maybe even what did you experience that nobody else saw? Like, what are the things that kind of, I know we talked about a little bit about self-doubt, but what do you think women who are in leadership roles and really trying to sort it out, what do you think they're dealing with emotionally that a lot of people don't talk about?
Yeah, I think it's, having been that leader, I was a fairly senior executive in the organizations. I, the one thing that I always recognized is I rose to that leadership spot always in my organization fairly quickly. Um, and I think, how do I say this? I think for us women, you sometimes, or at least in my early leadership days, I didn't understand or I didn't own me as a leader. I kind of read the books about perhaps some of the male leaders ahead of me and how they ran things. Nothing against it, but that's what I was reading. And sometimes I felt like I adopted some of that. Uh, and I think another thing is we assign sometimes a female or a male trait to people. Like if I'm a female leader, then I must be in this box. If I'm a male leader, I must be in that box. And I think for me is I probably have both traits in me.
Hmm.
That I can be the kind-hearted, heart-centered, human, understanding, but I have vision and I'm going to make a decision and I will stick my neck out and I will be bold. And sometimes I will say, no, we're going to do it this way. But then the heart part, but I want you to understand why I'm giving that, but it's a no. So I think for us as women leaders, we sometimes get trapped into some sort of male female trait. And I think we're much more complicated than that. And I come at it now from I have to be me and I have to be
Hmm.
me first. Whatever y'all want to assign to me, if it's male and female, that's yours to own. I have to be true to me. And then I feel like I give more of myself, and the way I handle the message is just that much more clearer and impactful. So for me, I think that's the life lesson for me.
And I think too, just in knowing you, it's because you have that heart-centered, quality about you. When you do kind of push in the other direction, it's not like this whipsaw reaction. It's kind of more of like, hey, you have balanced your personality. And I was born and raised in Philadelphia area, so very direct, very no fluff. I moved to the South, bless your heart. And I had to unlearn who I was, and that was a struggle because and it didn't work. It worked for a little bit of time, and then when I started kind of letting who I was really show up, the value that people found in that, because some of the conversations weren't easy, but I will always come at the conversation from a point of like, I am so invested in your success, and this is such a safe place, and I am not here passing judgment. But I will tell you, I'm a very direct person, but I will always do it from a place of not control, but this, hey, this is what, I feel we need to do and open to feedback, open all those things.
Yeah.
But I think too that women just in general, we have always been very palatable. We were supposed to be the yes, sir, everything's great. Let me go do this. I think now trying to show up and be more powerful in leadership and definitely in the workforce, definitely coming out and women-owned businesses are just exploding and we are building the future. Women are going to be the future. And I'm not saying that and I'm not anti-man and I'm just
Right,
not. It's just
right.
I feel that we are, if you look at as just as women, the nurturers, we're caregivers, we know how to multitask and do a bunch of things. And I mean, I think there's a lot of value in what we bring to the table, and it's finding the right places where we can show up and supported by the team that we can show up. And if we don't, then you go out and you build it. And I
Right.
think that's, I've been my own boss for 30 years. I don't think I could work for someone ever. I just don't because I'm
Yeah.
leaning so far into my strengths. And to you, what does human-centered leadership look like if you're in a practice, you're in a situation where you're constantly under pressure or in conflict?
Yeah, well, in healthcare and government, not for profit, I mean, those three sectors these days are probably under immense pressure, scrutiny, told to do more with less. Government in and of itself, I mean, yeah, it represents the voice of the people, and I'm referring to us here and also in Canada, that people want and expect, their investment, their tax money to go in places that they need. And sometimes it's just what's priority and to whom and how fast. And so anyway, it's just a ton of pressure. And even in a pressure cooker environment like those, it's funny how over the years I always found time to be that heart-centered leader. And it wasn't about time, more time. Like I always try to tell people, it's not about more time. Like I never spent more time. It's just I used my time differently. And I found quickly, and I would say in my early leadership, that the more I invested in the people, help coach them, inspire them, help them own and be part of the decisions, the design, uh, that their ownership seemed to inspire them, which then caused them to want to do more, which over time, I wasn't the supervisor. I was more like a conductor or an air traffic controller. Just everybody was keen to do their thing because they were excited. They had a vision. They knew I believed in them. They knew I had their back. They knew I would give them feedback. They trusted me enough that if it was something that I had to say, okay, hang on, let's talk this out, that I would do it, and I would do it in a kind, caring way. So they stretched, they innovated, they took risks. But heart centered for me also was that life was never too busy, even as a senior exec. That if I could tell someone on my team was struggling with something, you know what? I can stop. I can stop and check in,
Mm,
and just see how they're doing. And sometimes all it would be was, hey, just have a gut feeling. You doing okay? Like everything okay? And right then was, how did you know? Well,
right.
'cause I've gotten to know you and I can tell something's off. So let's talk. Uh, and the running joke became that there was a chair always in all my offices whenever I worked with people, that it was the chair that they sat in and just wanted to share something that was happening. And I think the human centered is, we've maybe lost sight of, we're all in this together to make a difference. We're all humans. So why don't we treat each other that way?
Yeah,
Um,
it doesn't cost anything to be kind to someone. It really doesn't. And if you are an empathetic leader and are being authentic and you really care about your team, you're going to tell when somebody's off. Because as easy as it is for you to say, well, check all your emotions at the door, leave your work home, do whatever else when you come in here, that you can't do things like that. Like, I mean, I going through divorce, going through health crisis, going through something with your kids or a parent or whatever, you can't always check that at the door.
no,
And even struggling, I mean, I recently was in, somebody reached out to me about an article to talk about what's it like to have menopause in the workplace. And you don't even think about that. Like I'm thinking, well, I'm my own boss, but I have menopause in the workplace place right now. And let me tell you, some days are really bad, but having a safe spot for that, having an opportunity to be like, I'm just having an off day. I'm just really, and I think some leaders, at least some that I know, they want to keep that line between their team and them because it could cross over into, well, we become friends or I become that engrossed and involved and they're going to slack off. And I don't, I don't feel that way. I feel like if you really care and you're showing up for your team and they know that there's somebody, you're not just a number or person that's, could just, they could be done with you today and a new person filling in your slot. Like if you know that you're a leader and your boss is there to be there for you, to have conversations, for it to be a safe place, why would your employees ever leave? They're not going
No,
to, you
yeah,
know? Majority
yeah,
of them that do leave, they need that job more than anything, but they just can't work in the environment,
yeah.
and culture. They can't work for it. It's usually the people lose jobs. People walk away from jobs because of horrible bosses, I think, more than anything. But you, because you have been across all the different kind of sectors as well, what have all of those worlds kind of told you about what type of leadership we need right now? Because the world, I mean, we're in two different countries, but there's just this global something doesn't feel right. People are hurting, people are struggling. There's a lot of things going on. What type of leaders and leadership do you think we need right now to kind of turn all this around?
Well, I think it kind of starts with a few things, and this is where, over 20 years, I've kind of listened to teams about what really matters. And I think it's one, self-awareness for ourselves. Like, I think we have to be allowed to know who we are, what we stand for, and that's easy to say, but I've even started using tools to help me stay grounded. And if those have really helped. Like, what is it about me that's authentically me in the first place? Like, what is it? Like, that's question number one. I think then that, what I call the heart, humility, and humor. So after you get that grounding, you have to think about how you inject that into your everyday, because it benefits you and it benefits your team. And when I say heart, is like, how do you just naturally are concerned about the team, the well-being, the individuals? Do you know about them? Do you know what's going on at home, or are they just a number? And I'll tell you, staff feel that fast.
Oh,
Uh,
for sure they do.
they feel that fast, whether you're the leader who cares or you're the leader who's just like, get the work done and I don't want to have any other interaction. So, and I think heart is about that vulnerability, um, too, in there, that you have to be okay that you're not perfect, because none
Right.
of us are. And if you believe you have to be perfect, I'm going to tell you right now, you are going to have either a rough ride or a pretty limited experience of being a leader, because the leadership can be pretty amazing. I think the next one is like inspiration and integrity. You have to know your values, you have to speak from your values, and you have to create those moments of inspiration on a team. I think, nurturing partnerships, like, it's not all about one, it's about creating win-wins. It's not about competition. It's not about secrets, like me against you. It's how do I create those partnerships externally, internally, that we do this together. And then that entrepreneurial zest is what I like to call it, is that instead of asking why not, and allowing yourself to dream big, even if in those organizations people put these immense and heavy parameters around you. I think I figured out, even in those, how I can either work within them or somehow even move past them and create a new kind of environment. So I've never been the type of leader who, and don't think we need leaders, particularly in those sectors, who just live within the parameters we're given, to be honest. So it's funny enough, that's what I use for my little shine
Mhm.
mental model
We're just
for
getting ready to get into your shine framework. Yeah.
my
Yeah.
leadership. So that's
Yeah.
it.
So, and for your shine framework, it's not a really, I mean, it's about more unlocking your brilliance than it is fixing your weaknesses.
Yeah.
And why does that distinction matter so much?
Well, a little bit just about what I used to do. Back in my early career, I used to be a community developer. And a community developer is when you work with community groups and try to help that community look at what's going on in their, what I call community health, and what they can do to get better. One of the principles from being a community developer is you never look at a community and say, look what they don't have. You always look at a community and say, but look what they do have. And how do we start with what they do have? We called it asset mapping. And that's probably something that has stayed with me all those years. And so that's why I've believed in, you have to start with people's superpowers.
Mm.
It's a tool I use, is how do you discover your superpower, and how do I get you to use it more? Because then your confidence increases. Then you start feeling like you're authentically you. Then you start communicating more clearly so that your message is starting to resonate. And then it kind of has that effect going forward. So I think that.
I love that. I think and I think one of the neatest things too when in working with women is that as a coach or as a consultant or whatever you want to call yourself, mentor, helping people identify what theirs is. A lot of times it's very easy for me or maybe even for you to know what their flow is and what their superpower is, and they just don't. But
Yes.
when you help them discover it or you help them lean into it and be like,
Yep.
"Oh, really? This is really like unique." Yeah, it's unique. You know what I mean? And no matter what it is that you're selling, you're offering or services or whatever, people buy you. And if they feel comfortable and they feel safe and they feel that they're not going to sit in judgment and they feel that you're going to encourage them and inspire them and all those things, that is, to me, that is, I think, the neatest place for me to show up and all the stuff that I do. And also, I'm sure for you, you just seem to be that way. When you see
Yeah.
somebody that's actually loving what they do, and for a lot of people who can actually step out and create a business around that, where you're bringing your strengths and you're bringing all of those things together. And I walked past, it was funny when you were just talking about that, about encouraging people to dream big and all. I was at a store and I walked past this plaque and I had to read it a couple times because I was like, we always hear that saying, what's the worst that could happen? Well, this plaque said, what's the best that could happen? And it's all about just the mindset shift. Like, what is the best that could come out of this situation? And let me ask you, for you, what mindset shifts or maybe new habits kind of helped you build success without losing yourself? You made this leap, you ran into it, and you made this leap. But what helped you continue to build it to be successful?
Yeah, I think I'll say a few. Like, one mindset is just dealing with the fear, and instead of, it comes the question of what if, and why. I'm just like, well, why not? And there, I have a coach who kind of said, but confidence doesn't come from, suddenly it's there one day. It actually comes from the courage to try a small step. The more courage you have to take the small step, the more confidence comes. But if you don't take the small step, confidence kind of never. And then all of a sudden, the light bulb clicked for me. So that definitely was one. And then I think the other thing that we do both, I think, as leaders, and maybe to a lesser degree as entrepreneurs, but it it's always self-limiting yourself. That belief that, at one point when I started this, I thought my only market was Winnipeg. That's it. That's all that I set my sights on. And then over time, I started realizing that I'm doing that to myself, and there's nothing really out there that says that that's it. And why isn't it Canada? And then I'm like, okay, wait, now why isn't it Canada and the US? And then wait, I but that's just one concrete example of, I think, we prevent ourselves from crossing the line based on something we've told ourselves all these years that, and maybe it's we're comfortable, right? Like it's where you're comfortable is like, I'm comfortable here, I'm not comfortable there, so this is where I'll stay. Um, and I think, those were probably the biggest mind shifts for me. And then being an employee for such a long time, I had to spend time rewiring myself from being an employee to being my own boss. And there is a legit journey in there because I do think that if you've been an employee as long as I have been, uh, same deal. You have to probably everything that you thought through, you have to say, wait a minute, that's employee, that's not a business owner thinking. So those were probably some of the mind shifts I had to go through, and not being scared to realize there were things I had to learn,
Mm.
even at 50 something. Uh,
Yeah.
I quickly was okay with realizing, you know what? I don't know how to do that. And what's the worst to like just to say I don't know. Now I have to find someone who can help me.
Well, and the whole, when you were talking about confidence too, confidence is built. It's not, you just don't wake up with it and you have it and you run with it. It's a decision that you make every single day. And no matter how successful you become, or how much you think you have it all together, it's still a choice you have to make every single day that I'm going to be confident in what I'm doing. And if I find an area like you, I shared this with you recently too, is that there is something that I wanted to learn. There was a next level I wanted to step into. I just surrounded myself with the people who were already doing it. And I asked the questions and I
That's
showed
it.
up and I stayed there and I was consistent. And then as I, got into the next level of my life, I wanted to bring other women along. And that's what I literally have spent the past few years doing. And for you and for the women that are listening to this, as we start to wrap up, what piece of advice, if they're kind of standing on the edge of where you were, like, I want to go and do this. I want to step out on my own, but I'm not really sure. What what would you want them to know? A piece of advice to help them believe in themselves to kind of get to their next level. Well, it's whether it's staying where they are and moving into another position at work, or whether it's stepping out on their own and into their own journey. What piece of advice would you like to share?
I would say one couple. The fact that you're starting to think about that is a signal. And if I could look back and say that signal is telling you that you probably need to really be exploring that leader, because it will probably never leave. It's going to keep showing up. And now, after, I've been at this for a couple of years, I have to say now I'm like, oh gosh, I could have been doing this sooner. Right? Like I think so if that thinking starts, you have to listen to it, because that's probably going to be your journey at some point. And then I think the biggest thing was, it was when I realized, okay, so if I wanted to do that, what skill would I have to hone or get better at, or that I question whether I have the skill to do it? And I just went and got the training. And then I got into uh, a room full of fellow entrepreneurs. And then everybody started helping each other out. And it was such a helpful community. And I thought, wow, they're like me. And it brought the temperature down, and that's when I started realizing, wait a minute, I thought this was some magic only for the 1%, and I thought, look at all these people like me.
Well,
And
I'm glad that you stepped out into your own world, because there is no doubt in my mind, even though we've only been in each other's worlds for a very short period of time, that you are just probably one of the most heart-centered, authentic people that I've ever talked to. So, and it, you know, just and I just want you to know that because it's a very nice, refreshing conversation to have with someone when you're looking at the world and you're thinking how could we make this right? How can we make it better? How can we make people feel more valued? And it's just more people like you who would step up to the plate and say, "Hey, listen, you know, I'm here for you. We can do this. We can build this." I always love talking to you. I mean, I
Yeah.
really do. I think, and so I know how to get a hold of you, but how do other people get a hold of you if they want to connect with you and if they want to learn more about you and continue on this conversation with you? What's the best way for them to find you?
Yeah. And there was one more item to the other question that to me is important to say about what
Sure.
health is, and then all is my partner. I think my partner knew before I did of what I was supposed to be doing, and I'll say it, and I may have ignored it for a while, but I will say that the people in your circle probably know before you do that this is what you were destined to be, and they're like a mirror that sometimes you wish, stop it. This is getting old, but I have to give credit to my partner who was very made sure that I saw the mirror, and that I didn't hide in the shadow. So I'll say that. But how to get a hold of me is, I have a weekly blog that I do, and like a little workbook. I call it my authentic blueprint workbook that people can get a hold of, and we could probably drop in the link on how to join that weekly blog. And I'm also on LinkedIn, Barb Wasilewski, there, and so easy to get a hold of me. I do respond and love connecting with people.
Well, it's been great getting to know you and spending more time talking to you. Like I said, we could have a 4 hour long podcast and we would still be going. But on that note though, I'm gonna wrap up for today. But thank you, Barb, so much for all that you do and for the people whose lives you definitely touched over those 2 decades of floating in and out of different things. You know, I'm sure there is a trail of people who are thankful for you. I know I definitely am. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank
And
you.
as we wrap up, I just want to remember, I want all of you that are listening to this to remember the woman that you're becoming is built in the decisions that you make next. So until we meet again, keep doing the work, keep choosing yourself, and keep rising into the life that's calling you. I'll be here every step of the way, guiding you to your next level. So I'll see you guys next week. Thanks again, Barb, for coming. And
Thank
I hope you
you.
come back on again soon.
Of course.